Welcome to the Christopher Hall Training Podcast. In this episode, we're going to be talking about the advantages of the McGill method. There are other methods out there for lower back pain, but I've found to be the most effective one, the McGill method. So let's talk about some of the advantages and get into it. The first and possibly most important advantage of the McGill method is it subcategorises lower back pain. So it digs a little bit deeper into what low back pain is for a specific individual. Many of other methods that are out there, they will use low back pain as a general rule. If you look at social media, it will just say beat lower back pain, low back pain rehab, whatever it may be, without any context as to what sort of type of back pain that it could be. So it just say 3 exercises for back pain, which is a very general term, which isn't terribly specific and useful to an individual that has a specific type of lower back pain. So by categorizing lower back pain into flexion intolerance, extension intolerance, compression intolerance, you start to be able to dig a little bit deeper into, well, first of all, what the back pain is and what's causing it, which then gives you a much more specific outcome as to what you need to do about it. Because if you go through a process, and how this is done, it's through a sort of questioning process. There's a degree of consultation that goes on, the asking of questions to understand the lifestyle aspects and postures, positions, movements, loads that are triggering people's problems. And then there's an assessment, so you not only get it out of them and they tell you what the problem is, but you actually take them through a process physically as well, so you can kind of repeat a process, if you will. So if they say, I get back pain while I sit down, that's giving you enough, or it's giving you some information to say that there's a flexion intolerance. But then if you then take them into a specific posture, which is similar to sitting, and it then creates that same problem, you're starting to get a better sense of what's causing the lower back pain. So it does it through a questioning process, it does it through a physical assessment process, and as I've mentioned, what you're then able to do is then start to build a much fuller, a much more effective way of dealing with that person's lower back pain. Because as I mentioned, a lot of them will just say, if you have lower back pain, do these 3 stretches. If you have lower back pain, go through this process of doing X, Y, and Z. Whereas that person hasn't really had any degree of understanding of what their lower back pain is. Because if you have an extension intolerance, which basically means extension causes or triggers your lower back pain, if you then put them in an extension posture, if you have a method that takes people through an extension posture, then it's going to be causing triggering the very problem that you're trying to solve. And just by having that method or that process for someone to go through isn't the most effective way of overcoming their lower back pain. What would be more effective is to understand that they have extension intolerance. Then essentially you remove those triggers, or at least minimize them, and then you send them onto a process of overcoming that. So you have to be able to subcategorize, and you have to be able to understand a bit more fully what the individual's type of back pain is, and then when you marry those two together, so you have the understanding that there are subcategories, you know how to find those subcategories, and then you can start building a proper solution for an individual. So it's not just going to be sort of written down in a book or in a video to say, if you have lower back pain, do X, Y, and Z, and your problem will be solved, because unless you're very lucky, it's not necessarily going to work. So the first advantage is it subcategorises low back pain.